Yes, Shivangi, we can start.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Then I'll just share the screen and I'll begin. First of all, good evening, everybody. I'll be your host for the podcast session. I am Shivangi Chaturvedi. I'm the digital media executive of Advantage India, and I welcome all of you on behalf of Advantage India. So, without before starting, I'd first like to give everybody a brief of what Advantage India is all about. There are members who've joined in for the first time, so I guess they'd like to know in detail. So just a brief introduction. Okay. So to begin with, Advantage India is a training and consultancy firm wherein we aim to guide the students as well as the professionals about the knowledge of various industries and domains, particularly oil and gas. We are a group of passionate professionals, and this is a platform which is built in to bridge the gap between academia and the industry. Um, we are very flexible in providing customized, unique training, cost effective training as per the client requirements. Then, what is our vision? Basically, we always have wanted to create an interactive platform for the students as well as the professionals to amplify the competence in their respective domains. As I said before, we reduce the gap between academia and the industry, and we provide all consultancies at cost effective rates. And the main motive is to connect the students with the professionals of the industry and to make the students gain from the experience that the professionals have. So we just not cover the technical aspects. We allow you to grow your interpersonal skills as well, which are absolutely very much needed. So, role of e-learning during the pandemic, we all know the role of e-learning. We all have realized, but when it comes to oil and gas, there is a good role of e-learning. We have adopted a modern approach where we provide quality training from the best of instructors. As I said, through their experience, you get to learn a lot. Classroom training is inefficient due to, in oil and gas domain, there is mobility, there are working hours, there's remote workforce. So you need the classroom training proves to be inefficient when it comes to this domain. And cost effective methods, we have 8 companies which look for cost effective methods, and online training reduces the cost of training of the employees. These are some of the colleges that took interest, registered with us, and worked with us. Some of them being UPES, Dehradun, ISM, PTPU, and the many mentioned here. Some past courses and endeavors that Advantage India has already conducted are directional drilling, drilling engineering and well construction, offshore drilling operational training, data analytics training for petroleum engineers, well intervention prospects, reservoir modeling using Kappa software, Halliburton Ered book software, overview of petroleum engineering. And we also conduct various webinars with industry professionals to help us have an interactive session. We conducted it on data science, we conducted it on well completion accessories. And we also provide internships like drilling and well engineering internship. We have aptitude quizzes conducted, the one that you can see, Mind Martians, that we conducted. Then, as I said before, we also focus on interpersonal skills. So we conducted a personality development course, a data science course, and you would be wondering why you would want to have Advantage India as an advantage, because cost effective training and oil and gas consultancy, you can have it at your feet with top tier faculty being provided to you. This is one of the courses in which you can register as of now. INR 3,500 is the cost, and till 15th March, early bird registration is also available. The instructor is Hashim Mokhtar Ali, and he's the senior reservoir engineer in the General Petroleum Company. So you can enroll yourself to have hands on the Kappa software and to learn about it. We would now begin with the podcast session for today. And before that, let me also introduce you to some of the technical advisors, consultants of our establishment, Milind Gokhale. You can go through the experience, the amount of experience that these personalities hold. Milind Gokhale, Sanjay Joshi, Samir Kale, um, and all of them, Mr. Samir Garg, PJ Sharma, Ram Shankar Pandey. And with that, I come to an end of the introduction. And now I would like to begin with the podcast. And I would first like to ask Saket sir to share about his valuable experience from moving to Stanford. And then, please, the mic is all yours, sir. Your audio is off, sir.
My bad. Well, so I am about to start my PhD. I already got admitted. I was admitted for visa, but I deferred it to 2021. Just because of COVID, I was not able to start. Well, so recently I just finished my master's degree, and meanwhile I was working with Telestra Energy based in India and Singapore as a reservoir engineering consultant. So I have delivered some reservoir engineering consultancy for GSPC projects over here. And yeah, this is how it has been with me. And then I did my bachelor's from DIT University, it's based in Dehradun. And then I went to Houston to work as a EIT engineering and training in the reservoir engineering department for Drilling Tech International LLC USA. There I worked for around 2 years. Like I continuously staying, I stayed in Houston for like 8, 9, or 10 months, somewhere around. And then I went to Calgary to pursue my master's, majoring in petroleum engineering again, and that was fully funded. And there I developed a correlation and a model where you can easily predict the gas oil relative permeability that was not available yet in the literature. So yeah, later people can use that kind of method to interpret the gas oil relative permeability using my method too. And recently, okay, so I have to be loud. Okay, sorry. So I recently, I'm about to start my PhD at Stanford, and there I'm going to pioneer the three-phase realm to develop some correlation model based on the experimental process. So this is all about me. And whatever I pursued after my bachelor degree was fully funded, so I never paid a penny or even for my flight ticket. So this is how it goes with me. And then I published 13 international peer-reviewed referred journals in Elsevier, Springer, SP, and then I wrote one book with one of the professor in Indian Institute of Technology or Indian School of Mines, Dr. Mato. That book was for next gen mining engineers. I developed some technology to mitigate the cell instability issues that we face during drilling procedure, and I have filed 2 US patent till now, and it's still in process, and maybe we can get it by this year. So this is all about me.
Okay, so our participants have come to know about a lot about you. So we had certain questions from the people who registered. So should I begin with the questions?
All yours.
So the first question, the most common one that was there, from DIT to Stanford, you're truly an inspiration for all of us. First of all, everybody wants to know, how do you feel? And could you please elaborately tell us about your journey?
Well, Stanford University is a big thing for me because when I started my engineering, even I didn't know what is Stanford University. So it's yeah, of course I feel great because it was my dream when I entered into bachelor degree. and like that is very expensive school and well recognized school too. So of course I feel very good. And coming from DIT, I cannot press like the reputation of a school matters until and unless you have the subject matter understanding. So sometimes it matters, but not always. So I did some because I did some work. I had good instructors, supervisors, and like I know a few other people that were like teaching me during my engineering degree. So they helped me some, and I worked a lot in laboratories. And like whenever I was studying, like I was never a like 100 90% student. Like I never got 90%. Like I got it in my final years, but not initially. I was always an average student. Like I was always getting 70 to 80% marks during my first or second year. But whatever I learned, I tried to learn, like so I can implement practically. So this is where I started actually. And then yeah, things happened with me. So yeah.
Okay, so as you said, sir, that you need not be from a reputed organization. You need to have the qualities of your own. So, can you enlist in bullet points what exactly a student should have to, go ahead?
Okay, I think most of them are like from petroleum engineering, right?
Yes, most of us.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's. I will talk like by taking examples, right? Let's say if we do reservoir simulations, right? So we have some sort of diffusivity equation or the mass balance equation, right? Or mass conservation equations. So we know how to do it, like mathematically. Like we can do it on the notebook. But when somebody is saying, okay, I know this simulator, that doesn't mean you don't know, because that simulator is nothing, it's just a kind of calculator which calculate big fields problem. That's all. That's the difference. So how I bridge a gap between the what we learn in the classroom and how it works in the in industry. So this, we just need to bridge a gap between us, means like academia, and the classroom and the industry. And this is how we're going to do. And apart from that, let's say we need to start from the basics fundamental. Until unless our basic and fundamentals are not good and it's not strong, we cannot do much good later in the career, because it's going to take some time. But if we know that we are here for 4 years to spend to grasp some understanding or the knowledge about the subject, then why we can't learn it here rather than just running behind learning different softwares. The first approach should be clear your fundamentals and understanding. And once you understand that, then think about it. What would be any kind of problem that can be involved in such kind of process? Let's say if you are interested in drilling engineering, so drilling engineering consists of different prospects. Let's say mud engineering. So there are some issues in the mud engineering too, because when you use let's say I'm just giving a very small example. If here we have a second year student, they know drilling tools. So let's say if they use water and they put into the shale, shale is generally consists of the highly reactive clay that is kaolinite, right? It's a part of montmorillonite mineral. So there you have loosely held cations, and that cations will be displaced by the H molecules of the water, and the water formula is H2O. So they interact to each other, and just because of the displacement reaction, it swells up, and that's what we call swelling of the shale, just because of the water-based mud. So this is the conventional method where we inject water as the water-based mud. But here we need to understand why it's happening. So we know just because hydrogen atom is more reactive than the loosely held cations associated with the clay, is the only reason, just reason for the shale swelling. So what we can do and what industry do, they just prepare an inhibiting water-based model where they use, let's say KCl, right? KCl is itself another kind of cations, right? So they use such kind of chemicals or the stuff to inhibit the reaction, right? So that there wouldn't be any kind of reaction between the kaolinite or the like the whatever the cations present in it, and they restrict that. And later, if it swells, the pore size is another criteria. If you have a lost circulation or any kind of fluid loss, how you gonna plug it? So you have to plug it using the polymers. Generally, this is the basic fundamental I'm talking about. And then this is the way how we should learn, and we can understand, okay, this would be any kind of problem later we can have in the industry, and how we're going to fix it by using our own classroom learning. So this is the way how I proceeded initially, actually.
Okay, so basically, sir, like suppose somebody is in first, second year in the beginning, initial stage, and they want to progress towards a research-oriented career. Now they want to be into a research associate thing, or they want to pursue education based on research. So what all should they keep in mind from the very beginning? Like you said, we have to focus on the basics, on the conventions. What qualities should we put in the beginning to build our resume in that way, or to build our knowledge in that way? One is basics, following the conventional method. The other.
Well, I think I should classify into two to three different things. Master degree is not a big thing to get. Anyone can go and get. If you are able to pay the fees, you can get it. But my thing is like, if you're already paying a huge amount during your bachelor, then why you are supposed to pay, or why you are looking to pay more for your masters? Like I had a prof. I want to take his name. He's like Dr. D. N. Saraf. I don't know you know guys or not. He is the first petroleum engineer from India. He was a graduate from University of California, Berkeley. When you read three-phase relative permeability, so he was the first person who gave you the technique to measure the water saturation. So yeah, so he was my professor when I was in bachelor degree. So he told me initially, until bachelor degree, if you're spending a penny is fine, but for master PhD, no, it's not worth. So my idea behind it, I think whenever if you are studying, try to use that classroom learning, because in this world, like the current scenario, I think marketing is a major thing we need to do, and how you can marketize yourself. Because these days industry is not looking for someone who can just come up in the firm and then they're going to train them for doing the task. The firm is looking for the well trained, like pre-trained people, those who already know, which is not possible to get during your classroom learning, right? So yeah, I think laboratory is the best method. Even if you are good in mathematics, do some mathematical kind of research, how you can mathematically interpret the laboratory problem and whatever you are learning in the classroom. And then you can show up, because this is not you're gonna do forever in your life, but this shows your curiosity and how enthusiastic you are for next career in your life. So yeah, I would suggest you guys, rather just running behind softwares and all, spend your time in the laboratory. This is the best a student can do.
So basically, practical knowledge plus basic convention is what we should progress with. Okay, so my next question is that if we talk of profile evaluation, suppose a bachelor student secured 8 plus CGPA, 9 plus CGPA, a good in academic student with 2 plus years of experience in a service company or as an operator. Now, what are the chances of that person going towards a fully funded scholarship like you? So, is that dependent on these two factors stated by me, or is that independent of it?
Okay, for University of Calgary, the requirement for the master admit, like University of Calgary is the number one petroleum engineering school in Canada, rank wise, like just for the petroleum engineering I'm talking, because they're having very well recognized professors. So the requirement for the MS was 8.5 from non-IIT colleges, and I had 8.2 and I made it. So I don't think so. This is something gonna pull you down. The only thing what gonna help you out is like how you are preparing yourself. So given 8 GPA, 9 GPA, of course, like if you are saying you know everything and you are good at a study, then why you're not having GPA, right? And another thing, let's say for the research, if you're publishing papers and getting 5 GPA, how it makes sense, right? Research is something which comes after textbook. It means once your fundamentals is okay, you will easily get a good GPA, and then you can start thinking beyond the textbook. So I think both should be managed, but I think somewhere around 8 GPA and then having one or two technical papers, you don't need to be, frustrated behind publishing papers. It's better you can do some literature study where you can understand what you learned in the classroom and what's going in the industry and how it is going and what else can be done in that. So this is research doesn't mean that just publishing paper. It should have some sort of, their stand in the world. Otherwise, it's gonna be kept at a place which will never be opened by anyone. So yeah, so just publish one or two papers. Spend some time in the laboratory because once you are attending the laboratory, of course, you have some basic fundamentals. So whatever you are doing, even if you're walking, you know you are walking, so you have a result. But how this result is going to be worked, that depends on the interpretation. So interpretation is important. So I would suggest do research, publish work in a good referred journals, not just in SP conferences, which is never peer reviewed, just selected based on the abstract. And even if you're just writing your name, it's not even never gonna be checked. So it make no sense. So always publish your works in like peer reviewed journals where experts will review your work. I remember one of my paper, I don't remember a Springer one. I wrote like 30 pages and got a comment of 14 pages. I revised, again got 7 pages comment, again revised 3 pages comment, again revised zero, just accepted. So how it worked is it enhanced my understanding about the subject where I was lacking about. So if I have to write again the same thing, I think I would not, commit the same mistake again. So I think that doing this kind of paper or research work will enhance your knowledge too.
Okay, so as you said in the former question, sir, that marketizing yourself right now is really important because the firm needs to know what you're good at and what you can serve the firm with. So that also means that we need to have a diverse skill set. Now,
True.
coming from a research assistant to going to a master student, what is the difference in the skill set that one needs to acquire? Like from a research assistant to a master student. So, what needs to be the difference in you, the driving force?
I didn't understand your question completely, but just stop me if you think like I am not able to understand your question. So, a research assistant is just something different. Like a prof is getting a fund, right? So that depends on university whether university is directly holding that funds or a professor is paying you directly, right? Let's say I will talk about the University of Calgary. How they do is like they just take out the funds from the professor's grant and then the department pay us as a scholarship. I'm not working for the prof. I'm working on my thesis, but that thesis was a part of the project granted to the prof. But in US, things are different. In US, what happened is a professor, a committee evaluates your application and then they send it to the prof. And then prof thinks, okay, whether I can trust this guy or not. So if they trust you, they can give you the RA right away. And if they don't trust you, they're gonna ask you to, to wait for one semester and the next semester they can give you the RA. So RA and a master's degree or whatever the PhD degree work simultaneously.
Sir, your
There's
network
nothing different, right?
connection,
Whatever.
sir, your voice is lagging.
Sometimes by coursework.
Your voice is lagging, sir. I guess your network connection.
Is it okay now? I think it's okay now. Well, so yeah, sometimes like a master course-based student, because in US or North American market, the graduate studies based on master degrees divided into two sections. Like let's say masters by research or masters by coursework. So generally coursework student, they are sometimes hired for a summer term as a research assistant where they are just helping research-based students or the postdoctoral fellows, sometimes the PhD students, sometimes the professors to conduct work for the prof, right? For prof's research. So that is different thing. RA is a kind of job, and master by research is research. A master student should be responsible for completing their thesis as well as their courses. So this is how it works. But in both things, both the RA and the master based student will get paid off.
So this was about the like this is you told about the difference what we have when it comes to both the things. Now, when I talk of the difference between there must be like the relationship shared by the professor and the students in India, and then when you're going abroad and then studying. So, what is the difference? Is there any? And if there is, then what difference does it? Is it's there?
I cannot say about anything wrong about it.
No,
Just
nothing
like,
wrong about the criteria. Uh, any criteria difference or level difference?
oh yeah, of course, like you will be more open to learn. You are more able to share your knowledge. There, like even for my prof who just pioneered many kind of research. Like even if you just pull out any of the executive people from many ENP companies, you will find their student. So he is someone who is 81-year old and supervised like more than 100 PhD or graduate students. So yeah, even if I say something like, let's say I asked a question by saying, okay, I have a silly question, and then he said there is nothing called we can call silly question. So this is something like that. They are very open to discuss. They are not like they know everything. Even if you are saying anything, they will be like very happy to listen. Okay, what he is saying. So yeah, even many things I didn't know before. In India, while I was doing a bachelor, I did some researches and everything, but I was not that much exposed to the things. But later I went to Canada, and then I met many of the people, and then I learned many things. So the only best thing I learned about, like, abroad studies is like you'll be exposed to many of the beautiful facilities that you can have. Let's say softwares, classrooms, group studies, group work, and teamwork projects where you can, like, once you will be graduated, I think you are ready to work. You don't need any industrial training and all, because you are already you are getting trained for the industry.
So, sir, when we talk about this oil and gas market, especially pertaining to times of now, so what is your opinion regarding people who want to pursue masters in petroleum engineering? Like, is it a safe decision for everybody, especially pertaining to now the oil and gas market? It has seen a change spectacularly during the pandemic as well. So, is it safe to, think from the very beginning for this field, even if it's not a scholarship based thing?
Well, yeah, of course, like the research grants are already cut during this COVID. But I have a very small question from you. Let's say if you have a company and you have four employees. So to do two employees, you are paying like 1 lakh per month. And then other two people, they are knowing the same thing and they are being paid off for like 25,000. Who you gonna kick off first?
Of course, the one who's getting the lesser.
I think you got your answer. I
Okay.
joined Catalyst Energy where the minimum person is having a experience of 30 plus, and I don't, but I do consultancy. So it's just what skills you hold. It doesn't matter like where you come from, and yeah, this is what I can say. Much nothing more.
Okay, so basically it is a safe decision to make if you want to. If you have the passion for it,
Yeah, if
and
you have dedication to learn,
to
because
learn.
even I think even like for if you are working somewhere or anywhere, like even Nishant is working, so can you think like he's not studying while working? Of course he should, because even if you are doing, but like for me, like I will tell you my story. We do PVT studies, like classical reservoir engineering. So sometimes I have to not sometimes, most of the times, right, I have to open the textbook for the formula. because that industry things are also running on the same formulas, right? The only difference gonna be someone is using softwares and I'm using Excel. So it's not all about passion. Your learning curiosity should align, right? Forever. This is how it's gonna be.
Any suggestions from your end for the undergraduate students who, who will be progressing in the current market scenario when I consider only the job prospects as of now? If I only talk of job prospects, what are your suggestions to the undergraduate students?
Okay, don't just make yourself to be prepared for the job. Like how it gonna be, just do a very serious studies, right? I'm not saying that just sit down and study forever like all the time 24 by 7. I'm just asking whatever, whenever you are studying, try to understand the subject matter more, you know um, thoroughly, rather just preparing yourself for the exam. I know, like even I'm an engineer, I do, and I did the same, right? Sitting in at night and preparing for the exam. Next day you have to write down and then you have to get passed. But my suggestion would be like, if you're doing a lab, try to understand the laboratory, because how just running the equipment is not never gonna work. How that equipment is working, that should be learned, right? You should understand how this is working. Once you started asking how and why, you will be what you need to be. You will be ready for everything. And for this current market, I think for first or second year student, start learning the basics first, and then from the second third year start doing some of the research projects with the profs. And don't rush behind, don't get frustrated behind publishing papers before, so that you can get admitted to the university, like highly reputed university. I would suggest take 1 or 2 years, do a small projects, but very good or an interesting project should be there. Publish it, attend some conference and meet people, and then get yourself ready for the industry or the company, because or for the university. Uh, because yeah, for India, like things are very tough these days, no matter where you are coming from. So this would be my suggestion. Other than there is a gate. Yeah.
Okay, so anybody who has any questions? Um, Anyone who wants to put in any questions, any queries?
Regarding anything, they are feel free. They can feel
Yeah, I have this question in the chat box, sir, from Uttam Gupta. What are the job opportunities after doing masters in petroleum from University of Calgary, Alberta?
job prospects. See, this is a problem that we hold, but still, I can answer you. I think Canada itself, Alberta, is the third world largest reserve they hold of the oil reserves, right? They don't have the pipeline, that's a different story, but still, the companies are not shut down, still working. Right? And as you know, conventional reservoirs are depleting day by day, and that's depleting based on the current stats. We cannot say it's already depleted, and that will be depleted next after next 40 years. Let's say tomorrow they will find something new, a reservoir. They're gonna say, okay, the conventional oil gonna sustain for next 50 years. So the stats will change. It's not a big deal, but currently Canadian oil reservoirs, they are just having heavy oils mostly, so they use steam. So this is something called, like, where we use thermal enhanced oil recovery. We inject steam and produce the oil.
Sir,
So
SHGD method, steam assist.
yeah. I work with Dr. Butler. He died long ago. He was the inventor of SAGD, steam assisted gravity drainage drive.
Yes,
I
yes.
used your equipment
I
in my,
I
yeah, I know
I
him.
read about this techniques. I read about this technique already.
Yeah. So
It's very
yeah.
simple and like it's a very simple and like in Canada we can use for the sand oil. I think.
Yeah, for oil sands, because the viscosity of that oil initially at the reservoir condition, because the reservoir
It's very
temperature
very high. It's very high.
so just because the temperature is very high, it's in Hindi we call alcatra, it's kind of thing, tar, and in English we call it as bitumen. So we need to inject the steam to raise the temperature up, and the viscosity goes lower, and just because of the gravity, it goes down from the producer level and then we produce. So this is the basic fundamental that Dr. Butler invented initially. So yeah, Canada is like is the future. Just because of the political conflict, they are not able to exploit their reservoirs a lot, because let's say the current oil prices, I think today is 64, right? So let's say 64 US dollar per barrel, but Canadian are forced to sell it at around $13 per barrel. So how it gonna make sense to sell something at a loss of $51? So this is the reason that they are not producing. But of course, this is the energy market of the world, Canada. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question from Bhautik Agarwal. Which one is better, to pursue masters just after the completion of bachelor's, or should one get involved in some job experience for some time and then go for MS?
Uh, if you're asking a specific, if you're not asking specifically for University of Calgary, I think it's fine. You can go even right after your bachelor degree, anytime. But if you're getting good exposure to the industry, like the core industry, let's say if I'm a petroleum engineer, I'm a reservoir engineer, so I do simulation and everything, every kind of like petroleum engineering calculation. So I'm well good. So if I would have to go, then I would first work for a year or two, so that I can at least clear my understanding. Because sometimes what happened. I can tell you my story. I was not able to understand because I just went from the classroom to the industry. So I just worked for a few months, so I didn't know much. But when I went to the University of Calgary, there I learned a lot. So we can still not able to bridge the gap between industry and academia if you're just going for the masters. But if you're not getting a good job in the industry, then I would suggest you go directly for the master. But if you're getting your domain job, then I think you should work for a year and then you can go for the masters.
Any other questions, anybody? I have asked the ones that were in the chat box. Any other questions anybody wants to ask? Otherwise, um, we already got so much to learn from Sir. We would conclude the session. Okay, are there MSc full funding available for bachelors in petroleum engineering?
Sir, I think, as I said, like you don't need to pay for your master's degree until unless you have like that kind of profile. So profile evaluation, I think there is a topic comes profile evaluation here. So profile is very important. I'm not saying it's everything, but it's very important. Sometimes, let's say these days, before, like when our, like say our uncle or father or like our teachers were doing their MS or PhD, at that time the engineering, like openings were more, right? And then the number of students. But right now the openings are very few, and even it's very severe during this pandemic. So let's say if a prof is having $1 million, they can hardly have two to three students, right? And the pool of applicants would consist of hardly 100. So of course, like the ratio is very less, 3/100. So I would suggest you, for me, what I did is I stick to the professor, like I know what I'm doing. And then if I haven't done that, let's say I'll give you my example. I am currently working in Dr. Tony Kosek at Stanford. He works for improving the that's on heavy oil recovery. So I was working on gas oil relative permeability, this means the multi-phase flow in porous media. So that was my thesis during my master degree. And then I integrated to the three-phase flow, and then I proposed the research. I said, Tony, you were and your group were working on this topic from last 20 years. So this was something that you found out, and this is the result I have. So if I just compile these two things, I will get more results, and that's going to help you more. So this is what I proposed, and they had to trust me because I had the background, and that background was established and proven. So in this way, we need to write our SOPs. SOPs and personal statement is totally different thing. Generally, people do mistakes. What they do is, like they just write about their life's journey and statement of purpose, and it makes no sense. A statement of purpose means what you can offer on their table, on a professor's table. So that's what I did. And what I did is, this was my initial projects for him. And then I thought, okay, he was working on chemical enhanced oil recovery. So I collaborated with one of the profs called Dr. Main Hussain. And he was the first guy who invented technology to mitigate the saline instability. He's a patent prof in University of Calgary. And I started working on chemical enhanced oil recovery where Tony has worked as well. And then I proposed another research in that. Like my main goal was, anyway, I have to get admitted to the Stanford no matter what. So I did everything to get admitted, and then I wrote my SOP, stick to the point and what I can offer and what you did. And in that way, I think they evaluated my profile, because based on just the GPA and grade, I think I would never be admitted to the Stanford, because I never had like 10 CGPA or 9 and something like that. I always, my overall GPA was 8.3 GPA. So I cannot say I was always a topper, not at all. And even for my MSc, I had like 3.95 over 4. But for my bachelor's, no, my school's reputation was not that good. But my recommenders were like well-known people. My MSc supervisor was well-known people, and then I did my graduation from a good university. So this is something going to help you. Only your profile, nothing else.
So I would be taking this last question from Krutik Lapani. Is there any pre-employment medical test regarding eyes in the companies? As I have 10 power in both of my eyes. Oh my God.
Uh, I don't know who is asking this question, sir, but I have no answers for that, because even I don't know what was my power when when I got tested for the medical purpose. I don't remember.
I guess you need to visit the websites, Krutik, for this purpose. I guess by that we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, sir. It was a session where we learned quite a lot. Thank you for the information that you have conveyed to us. And with that, I take permission from all of you to end this session and conclude it. And all the best, sir. Somebody is asking for your email address.
Yeah, I can provide you. How about you can just connect, ED Advantage India, and then they can get back to me.
Yeah,
If
sure. Christian Davison, you can mail your query to Advantage India on our mail address, or you can contact us anywhere, and we would get your query sorted from sir. That would be fine. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for attending the session. It was really good having you. I
thank
would
you.
like to sign off. Thank you so much, sir, again for that insightful session.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Yeah,
Thank you,
Stay
sir.
safe.
you too.